Welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to learn about JavaScript arrays. So an array in JavaScript is a special variable that can be used to hold more than one value at a time. So we've already talked about JavaScript objects and how they can be used to hold more than one value, and an array is another type of variable that can be used to hold multiple values. However, it is different than an object. Basically, an object is something that has properties and methods that can be utilized to describe this object, where an array is like a list. So let's say we have a shopping list. We want to buy some apples, we want to buy some bananas, and we want to get some peanut butter. So your shopping list is really a list of items that you want to keep together. And this is kind of what like an array is. It is basically a list of variables. So to get started, if you can go ahead and go into your project folder, navigate to the 17-arrays folder, then the start subfolder, open up main.js. Also in your browser, if you can go ahead and open up the index.html page that's in the start subfolder, you should see arrays on the page. So in order to create an array, we create this variable like we do any other variable in JavaScript. So I'm going to go ahead and do const array. And I'm going to go ahead and set it equal to an open and closing bracket. So when you declare a variable with these two brackets here, JavaScript's going to recognize that as the syntax for creating an array, and it's going to create this variable as an array. So as I mentioned, your array is like a shopping list, so it could be used to hold items. So in case of JavaScript, it can be used to hold values or variables. So for an array, I'm going to go ahead and add the number 1, the number 2, and the number 3. And then let's go ahead and do a console log, and we go ahead and take a look at our array. So what should get logged is we should see our open and closing bracket, and then we'll see the length of our array in the developer console here. So if we go ahead and expand it, we'll see the items that are contained in our array and the index of where that item is located. So you'll see in the first position, so index 0, we have our number 1. And then in the second position, our index 1, we have the item 2. And then in our third position, index 2, we have number 3. So arrays in JavaScript are really unique because since they're just a container to hold values, we can place any type of data type we want inside our array. So for example, I can go ahead and add a string. You can go ahead and add an object. So I'm just going to add a property test with a value of test. And you can also place in functions. So I'm going to go ahead and do function and console.log hi. So if we go ahead and save and refresh, you'll see now we have an array of 6 items. And in our array, we have 3 numbers, a string, an object, and a function. So this is important to know because as you are accessing elements in your array, you may need to treat them differently depending on the data type of the variable that is there. So we've seen how we can access an array as a whole, and we can do that by just using the variable name. So we've seen that when we do our console log of array because we're accessing that whole variable of array. However, oftentimes you'll want to access individual elements of your array. And to do this, we just need to access the element of our array by its index. So we can do that by doing console.log, and if I go ahead and do array, and then brackets. So the brackets are used to refer to an index. So similar to how we refer to a property on an object, you can also do the same type of brackets here. So then I'm just going to go ahead and pass in the number 0, so that way we can access our first array element. And you can see it returns our value of 1. So here. So it's important to note in JavaScript, your array is not immutable. So what that means is we can change the values of the items in our array, and we can also add and remove elements of our array. So if we want to go ahead and update a value in our array, we can do this by accessing that array element. So for example, if we want to go ahead and update our first item here to be the number 4, we can do array our index of 0, and we assign it to the value that you want it to be. So I'm going to go ahead and do 4. And then what we'll do is let's go ahead and grab our console log statement here, and we'll place it after this. We'll go ahead and save and refresh. So now you'll see when we access this array element, we return the value of 4. And so it's also important to know that these are treated just like variables. We can change their data type as well. So let's say if I want to go ahead and copy these 2 lines of code here, and let's go ahead and change this to test. So now if we save and refresh, you'll see we return the string test from our first element in our array. So one important thing to note about arrays in JavaScript is that arrays are a special type of object. So if you ever inspect the type of your array, you'll see that it gets treated as a JavaScript. However, whenever we're referring to an array, we always refer to it as an array, not an object, because it has its own special properties and methods. Another thing to note about the differences is that arrays can only be accessed by indexes that are numbers, and objects, as we've seen before, can be accessed by indexes that are strings. So that's important to note. So another thing to know is while other programming languages do support arrays with named indexes, JavaScript does not. Usually these arrays that have named indexes are called associative arrays or hashes, but JavaScript has no support for these, and you always have to use a number to access elements in your array. So one of the things you might be asking is how can we tell if a variable is an array if it gets treated as an object in JavaScript? And this is pretty easy to do. There are 2 ways we can do this easily. The first is we can use the keyword array and then use the method isArray and then pass in our array as an argument, and this will return true if it's an array or otherwise false if it is not. So to see this in action, what we'll do console log and we'll do array.isArray, and then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and pass in our array variable, and let's go ahead and save and refresh, and you'll see it comes back as true. So the other way is we can use the Assistive method to see if our variable is an instance of this particular data type. So if we do array instance of the array keyword, and then what we'll do is we'll just wrap this in a console log, and we'll go ahead and save, and let's refresh, and you'll see it also comes back as true.